The city of Seoul never truly slept. Even at dawn, when the sky hovered between charcoal and pale silver, the glass towers of Gangnam glowed like vigilant sentinels, symbols of ambition, power, and inherited wealth. At the very center of it all stood the Han Global Group headquarters, a towering monolith of steel and prestige that bore the weight of generations. On the 48th floor, Chan Woo-han stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his hands tucked into the pockets of a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. At 30 years old, he had already achieved what most men would spend a lifetime chasing. Billionaire, CEO, heir to one of Korea's most powerful families. And yet, his jaw was clenched as if none of it mattered. Below him, traffic pulsed like veins through the city, headlights weaving stories he would never hear. He exhaled slowly, eyes dark and thoughtful, reflecting not the skyline, but the conversation from the night before. It settled, Chan Woo. His father's voice echoed in his mind, calm, authoritative, final. The merger will strengthen both families. Zoe Carter is intelligent, accomplished, and from a respected lineage. This is not a suggestion. Chan Woo scoffed softly under his breath. A merger, not between companies alone, but between two lives. He turned from the window, running a hand through his neatly styled black hair, irritation simmering beneath his composed exterior. The media called him the golden heir, handsome, brilliant, charming when he wanted to be. Women smiled too quickly around him. Men either envied or feared him. But marriage? To a woman he had never met? A woman he had already judged without trying to hide it? Zoe Carter, American-born, black, 25, wealthy, popular, career-driven. From what little he had heard, she was sharp-tongued, fiercely independent, and uninterested in traditional roles. She probably looks down on men like me, he thought, thinks we're all replaceable accessories. He had seen her profile once briefly during a board presentation. Her resume was flawless. Degrees from elite universities. A rising executive in her family's conglomerate. Impressive and completely unappealing. Chan Woo valued elegance, softness, grace, not a woman who treated life like a battlefield. Across the ocean, in a sunlit penthouse overlooking Manhattan, Zoe Carter stared at her reflection in the mirror and frowned. She was dressed impeccably. Cream blouse tucked into tailored trousers, gold jewelry minimal but intentional. Her dark curls framed her face beautifully, her skin glowing under natural light. At 25, she was already a force in her own right, and she hated every second of what was happening. "You're not even listening," her mother said from behind her. Zoe turned, arms folding across her chest. "I am listening. I just don't agree." Her mother sighed, the sound heavy with practiced patience. "This is bigger than romance, Zoe. This is legacy. Legacy shouldn't come at the cost of my freedom." Her father cleared his throat, seated calmly on the sofa like a man used to closing billion-dollar deals. Chan Woo-han is not just anyone. His family's influence in Asia is unmatched. Together, you'd be unstoppable. Zoe laughed once, sharp and humorless. Unstoppable at pretending, maybe? She walked back to the mirror, adjusting her earrings with deliberate care. She had heard the rumors. Chan Woo-han, the arrogant CEO with a cold smile and a reputation for charming women just to discard them. A man raised on privilege, surrounded by yes-men and pretty faces. Flirt, she thought bitterly. Probably can't go a week without a scandal. And now she was expected to smile beside him, play the obedient partner, and sell a fantasy to investors and the press. Absolutely not. "I'm not some trophy," she said quietly, "and I refuse to shrink myself for a man who probably thinks women like me are too ambitious to be lovable." Silence followed. Her parents exchanged a look, the kind that said the decision had already been made. "You'll meet him first," her mother said gently. "No pressure. Just a meeting." Zoe turned slowly. "And if I say no?" Her father met her gaze. "Then you walk away knowing you rejected something historic." Zoe swallowed. She hated ultimatums. 2 weeks later, the Han family estate buzzed with controlled elegance. Zoe stepped out of the car, her heels clicking softly against the polished stone driveway. The estate was breathtaking. Traditional Korean architecture blended seamlessly with modern luxury. It was beautiful and intimidating. She straightened her posture, lifting her chin. I belong here, she reminded herself. Just because it's not familiar doesn't mean it's above me. Inside, the air smelled faintly of sandalwood and wealth. Chan-woo arrived moments later. The room shifted. Zoe felt it before she saw him. When she turned, her breath caught. Just slightly, but enough to irritate her. He was taller than she expected. Broad shoulders, sharp jawline, eyes dark and unreadable. His presence was quiet but commanding, like a man who never needed to announce himself. This was not the rude, careless flirt she had imagined, and that annoyed her even more. Chan-woo stopped mid-step when he saw her. For the first time that day, his thoughts stalled. She wasn't what he expected. Not stiff, not cold, not overly aggressive. She carried herself with effortless confidence, her smile polite but guarded, her eyes intelligent and warm despite their caution. Beautiful but not in a fragile way, in a powerful way. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Suspicion, curiosity, reluctance, and beneath it all, something neither was ready to name. "This is Zoe Carter," his mother said warmly. "Zoe, this is my son, Chan-woo." They bowed slightly, instinctively mirroring respect. "It's nice to finally meet you," Zoe said. Her voice was smooth, steady. Chan-woo nodded. "Likewise." Awkward silence followed. They sat side by side during tea, speaking only when spoken to, both painfully aware of the expectations hovering over them. Every glance felt measured. Every word felt filtered. Yet, something kept drawing them back to each other. A shared smile when his aunt made a joke. A quiet moment when their hands brushed reaching for the same cup. Neither pulled away too fast. Neither ignored it. Later, they found themselves alone in the garden. "You don't seem how I imagined," Zoe admitted, breaking the silence. Chan-woo chuckled softly. "I was thinking the same." She raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Too career-focused? Too intimidating?" He met her gaze honestly. "I thought you wouldn't like me." Zoe blinked, surprised. "I thought you'd be arrogant," she confessed. "Rude. A flirt." He laughed quietly. "I thought you'd despise men like me." They stared at each other, then, unexpectedly, laughed. The tension eased. Just a little. And in that moment, neither of them realized it, but something had already begun to change. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of something dangerously close. The first rule they silently agreed upon was simple. Peer united. Stay distant. Feel nothing. It sounded easy in theory. In practice, it was torture. The morning sun filtered through sheer curtains in the guest wing of the Han estate, painting the room in soft gold. Zoe stood before the mirror, smoothing the fabric of her navy dress with controlled precision. The dress was elegant, structured, professional enough to remind everyone she was not a decoration, feminine enough to satisfy the expectations she resented. She exhaled slowly. Today was their first public appearance together. A joint press luncheon, investors, board members, international media. The announcement of the Han-Carter Strategic Alliance. And by extension, them. She had slept poorly. Not because of nerves, she refused to give the situation that power, but because her mind kept replaying the previous evening in the garden. Chan-woo's laugh. Not rehearsed. Not arrogant. Real. Don't romanticize, she warned herself. Men like him are experts at charm. Still, as she applied a final touch of gloss to her lips, her reflection looked calmer than she expected. Across the estate, Chan-woo adjusted his cufflinks with meticulous care. His suit today was deep black, crisp white shirt beneath classic, commanding. He had attended more press events than he could count. Normally, they bored him. Today felt different. He rolled his shoulders once, loosening tension he refused to acknowledge. She's just a business partner, he reminded himself. Nothing more. Yet his mind betrayed him, recalling the way Zoe had stood her ground yesterday. No forced smiles, no pretension. Just quiet confidence. Not aggressive. Not dismissive. Balanced. He frowned slightly. That shouldn't matter. The luncheon hall was a controlled spectacle of wealth. Crystal chandeliers. Linen-draped tables. Cameras flashing like distant lightning. Conversations hummed in multiple languages. Korean, English, Mandarin, power circulating in every corner. Zoe entered beside Chan-woo, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The contact was minimal, but electric. Her fingers were warm through the fabric of his suit, and for a fraction of a second, his body reacted before his mind did. He straightened, jaw tightening, not in displeasure but awareness. Get it together. Cameras pivoted instantly. Mr. Han. Miss Carter. Over here. Zoe smiled. A practiced, polished curve of her lips, but she felt his arm tense beneath her hand. You okay? She murmured without looking at him. Fine, he replied quietly. You. Ask me again after this is over. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. They took their seats at the center table, the unspoken focal point of the room. Executives leaned closer. Whispers rippled. A woman from a European media outlet leaned forward. You two seem comfortable already. Zoe's smile sharpened. We respect each other. Chan-woo added smoothly. And respect is the strongest foundation. Their eyes met briefly. Something passed between them. Not affection. Understanding. The questions came quickly. How long have you known each other? Zoe answered calmly. Long enough to recognize shared values. Chan-woo nodded. And long enough to know this partnership will be powerful. A lie, but a convincing one. As the luncheon progressed, Zoe noticed the way Chan-woo subtly adjusted to her rhythm. When she leaned forward, he did the same. When she paused before answering, he waited. When a question veered uncomfortably personal, he redirected smoothly, protectively. That surprised her. He doesn't have to do that, she thought. Across the table, Chan-woo was making his own observations. She listened more than she spoke, but when she spoke, people listened. Her intelligence wasn't aggressive. It was assured. There was no need to dominate the room. And when a senior investor interrupted her once, she didn't bristle. She smiled and continued anyway, her voice steady until the man found himself nodding along. She doesn't look down on men, Chan-woo realized. She just doesn't lower herself for them. That distinction unsettled him. After the luncheon, they escaped to a quiet corridor overlooking the inner courtyard. The moment the doors closed behind them, Zoe exhaled sharply. I forgot how exhausting pretending can be. Chan-woo chuckled softly. You were impressive. She blinked. You don't have to flatter me. I'm not. Silence followed. Not awkward this time. Just unfamiliar. I thought you'd hate this, he admitted suddenly. Zoe tilted her head. Why? Public performance. Expectations. She shrugged. I hate being underestimated more. He studied her, something thoughtful settling behind his eyes. You weren't. Neither were you, she replied. They stood there longer than necessary, the quiet stretching comfortably. Then footsteps approached. Reality returned. That evening, a smaller, more intimate gathering followed. A dinner with close family members and key stakeholders. Less cameras. More scrutiny. Zoe found herself seated beside Chan-woo again. This time closer. Their shoulders brushed when they reached for dishes. Their knees touched under the table, accidental but lingering a second too long. Her heart beat faster, traitorous. This is ridiculous, she told herself. You don't fall for proximity. Yet when he leaned closer to explain a cultural nuance quietly in her ear, his breath warm against her skin, she felt something unfamiliar twist low in her stomach. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not making me feel like an outsider. He hesitated. You're not. She looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time she wondered if she had been wrong about him. Across the table, Chan-woo caught himself watching her laugh with his cousin. Her expression soft, unguarded. The sound settled somewhere deep in his chest, unwelcome and undeniable. This is dangerous, he thought. Later that night, unable to sleep, Zoe wandered into the estate's library. Rows upon rows of books. History, philosophy, economics. She smiled faintly. So this is where you hide? Chanwoo's voice said from behind her. She turned, startled but not uncomfortable. I could say the same. He gestured to the shelf she stood before. You like strategy. She nodded. People are predictable. Systems less so. He stepped closer. You really think I'm predictable? She considered him. I think you want people to think you are. He laughed quietly. And you? I want people to underestimate me. Their eyes locked. Something shifted. Not desire yet, but recognition. As if two guarded souls had finally seen the cracks in each other's armor. We should probably keep some distance, Chanwoo said softly, though he made no move to step back. Zoe nodded. Probably. Neither moved. The silence thickened, not awkward, not forced. Charged. And for the first time since this arrangement began, neither of them felt like they were pretending. They were still strangers, still cautious, still bound by expectations. But something undeniable had begun to form. Quiet, fragile, and utterly unexpected. Connection. If anyone asked either of them later when things truly shifted, neither Chanwoo nor Zoe would be able to point to a single dramatic moment. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even a fight. It was a decision disguised as obligation. The proposal came during a late-morning strategy meeting in the Han Group's executive boardroom. Sunlight streamed through tall glass panels, casting long reflections across the polished table. Zoe sat across from Chanwoo, tablet in hand, posture composed. They had fallen into an efficient rhythm over the past few days. Professional, respectful, careful. Too careful. A senior PR executive cleared his throat. To strengthen public confidence, we recommend a joint appearance outside a formal corporate environment. Zoe looked up. Meaning, a cultural charity event. Art gallery opening. Something refined, intimate. It allows the public to see chemistry without pressure. Chanwoo leaned back slightly, arms crossing. You want us photographed on what is essentially a date. The executive smiled nervously. Perception is everything. Zoe felt the word date land somewhere unexpected in her chest. She kept her face neutral. Where? The Gwangjin Contemporary Arts Exhibition. Tonight. Chanwoo turned to her. If you're uncomfortable. I'm not, Zoe said quickly, then paused. I mean, it's manageable. Their eyes met. There it was again, that unspoken awareness. Not resistance. Not agreement. Something hovering between. By evening, Seoul shimmered beneath a violet sky. The art gallery was alive with curated elegance. Soft lighting, minimalist architecture, carefully selected guests. Wealth without excess. Taste without noise. Zoe stepped out of the car first. Chanwoo nearly forgot how to breathe. She wore a deep emerald dress that flowed rather than clung, its simplicity allowing her natural confidence to shine. Her hair was styled loosely, curls framing her face in a way that felt intimate, intentional but not guarded. She wasn't dressed to impress. She was dressed to exist. And that unsettled him far more than anything else could have. You look... He stopped himself, searching for a neutral word. Appropriate. She arched an eyebrow. That's the best you could do? He smiled despite himself. You look stunning. The word slipped out before he could censor it. Zoe paused, genuinely surprised. Thank you, she said softly. Cameras clicked as they entered together, his hand resting at the small of her back. Light, respectful, but undeniably present. She didn't pull away. Inside, the atmosphere was different from the boardrooms and formal dinners. Here, conversations were quieter, observations deeper. Art forced people to feel even when they didn't want to. They moved slowly through the exhibits side by side. This one, Zoe said, stopping before a large abstract piece. Deep reds and blacks colliding violently at the center. It feels angry. Chanwoo studied it. Or restrained. She glanced at him. You think anger can be restrained? I think the most dangerous kind always is. Their gazes lingered. Too long. Do you collect art? She asked, turning away first. Not intentionally, he replied. It tends to collect itself around me. She laughed. That's the most billionaire answer I've heard all week. He chuckled. And you? I buy pieces from artists who aren't famous yet. He looked at her with new interest. Why? Because talent deserves to be seen before it's profitable. Something shifted in his expression. Respect. Unfiltered. They were halfway through the gallery when Zoe noticed her. A woman in a sleek black dress approached Chan-woo with familiar ease, her smile confident, practiced. Chan-woo, she said warmly. It's been a while. Zoe felt it before she could stop herself. A tightening. Not jealousy, she told herself. Awareness. Yura, Chan-woo replied politely, stepping back just enough to create distance. I didn't know you were back in Seoul. I am, for a short time. Yura's gaze slid to Zoe, assessing. You must be Zoe. Zoe offered a composed smile. I am. Lucky you, Yura said lightly, then turned back to Chan-woo. We should catch up sometime. Chan-woo didn't miss the implication. He also didn't miss the way Zoe's shoulders subtly squared. We're a bit busy, he said evenly. But it was good seeing you. Yura hesitated, clearly enthused to dismissal. Of course, she said, masking it quickly. Enjoy the evening. As she walked away, Zoe released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. He looked at her. Do what? Shut that down. I wanted to. She studied his face, searching for calculation. Found none. Does that happen often? She asked before she could stop herself. He raised an eyebrow. You mean women assuming they still have access to me? She winced. That sounded judgmental. Honest, he corrected gently. And yes, it does. She nodded slowly. I assumed. And I assumed you wouldn't care. She looked at him, then really looked at him. I don't like feeling irrelevant, she said quietly. Something warm spread through his chest. Neither do I. Later, they stood on the terrace overlooking the Han River. The city lights reflected off the water, shimmering like fragments of another life. The noise of the gallery faded behind them, replaced by cool night air and distant traffic. Zoe leaned against the railing. This feels less like a performance. Chan-woo stood beside her, close but not touching. It is. Why? Because no one's watching us out here. She smiled faintly. Funny how honesty needs privacy. He nodded. Funny how comfort comes from the last place you expect. Silence stretched between them. Not empty, not awkward. Comfortable. Dangerously so. Chan-woo, she said softly. Yes. If we weren't doing this for business, would you still be here? He didn't answer immediately, because for the first time the question scared him. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I don't want to leave. Her heart skipped. That surprises me, she said. It surprises me too. They stood there closer now, not touching, but aware of every inch between them. Neither crossed the line, but both felt it. The pull. The beginning of something that no contract could enforce, and no strategy could contain. When the night ended and they parted ways, Zoe returned to her room restless, mind racing. She hadn't planned to like him, hadn't planned to care, hadn't planned to feel anything at all. And yet, Chan-woo lay awake in his own room, staring at the ceiling, replaying her laugh, her honesty, the way she looked at him without expectation. For the first time in his carefully controlled life, the future didn't feel like a plan. It felt like a possibility, and that terrified him. The days after the gallery event passed with a strange, unsettling ease. Too smooth, too comfortable. Zoe noticed it first in the smallest things. The way Chan-woo began timing his meetings so they crossed paths more often. How he remembered how she took her coffee without asking. How his gaze softened before he caught himself and looked away. She hated that she noticed. She hated even more that she liked it. That morning, Seoul was wrapped in mist, the sky pale and quiet. Zoe sat at the long dining table in the Han Estate's private breakfast room, scrolling through reports on her tablet. Her focus was fractured. Across from her, Chanwoo read the news on his phone, posture relaxed in a way she hadn't seen before. Not CEO relaxed, human relaxed. "You're staring," he said without looking up. She blinked. "I am not." He smiled faintly. "You are." She huffed softly. "Fine. I was thinking. That's dangerous." She laughed before she could stop herself. The sound startled them both. They froze, then exchanged a look, surprised by how natural it felt. "I have meetings in the city today," Chanwoo said after a moment. "But I'll be late." She nodded. "I'm reviewing partnership terms with my team remotely." He hesitated. "Would you like to join me later?" She looked up. "Join you how?" "There's a place," he said carefully. "Not public. Somewhere I go when I need quiet." Her instincts flared, caution, curiosity, awareness. "Just us?" she asked. "Yes." She studied him. He didn't look like a man setting a trap. He looked like a man offering trust. "I'd like that," she said softly. The drive took them away from the city. The noise faded gradually, replaced by winding roads and dense greenery. Zoe watched the scenery change, her shoulders relaxing with every mile. "Not many people know about this place," Chanwoo said, eyes on the road. "My grandfather used to bring me here." That alone told her how significant this was. They arrived at a quiet lakeside pavilion, traditional wood resting beside still water that mirrored the sky. The air was cool, clean, untouched. Zoe stepped out of the car and inhaled deeply. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Chanwoo watched her, something unguarded in his gaze. "It is." They walked slowly along the wooden path. "This is where I learned how to be alone," he said. "Without being lonely." She glanced at him. "Those aren't the same thing." "No," he agreed, "but they're easy to confuse." They stopped at the edge of the water. The silence was different here, soft, inviting. Zoe turned to him. "Why did you bring me here?" He took a breath. "Because everyone sees what I do," he said. "No one sees who I am." Her chest tightened. "That's not true," she said. "Isn't it?" he asked quietly. "People see the CEO, the heir, the man with everything." She stepped closer, her voice gentle. "And what do you see?" He hesitated, then spoke honestly. "A man who learned early that affection comes with conditions. That approval is earned, not given." Her heart clenched. "I learned how to be perfect," he continued, "because perfect people don't get abandoned." Zoe reached for his hand without thinking. He didn't pull away. "Chanwoo," she said softly, "you don't have to earn care." He looked at their joined hands as if surprised they were allowed to exist. "I don't know how not to," he admitted. Something broke open between them. Not dramatically, quietly. She squeezed his hand. "Then maybe we learn together." His throat tightened. They sat beside each other on the pavilion steps, shoulders brushing. For a while, neither spoke. Zoe watched the water ripple gently, feeling something shift deep inside her. She had built her life on independence, strength, control. Yet here she was, wanting to protect a man who had everything. "I was wrong about you," she said finally. He smiled faintly. "So was I about you." She glanced at him. "What did you think? That you wouldn't have space for anyone else. And now, I think you choose carefully." She met his gaze. "I do." Their faces were close now, close enough to feel each other's breath, close enough that the world seemed to narrow to this single moment. His eyes dropped to her lips. Her heart raced. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The tension wrapped around them, electric and fragile. Then he pulled back. "I shouldn't," he said hoarsely. The rejection stung briefly, but she saw it for what it was. Fear. "Okay," she said, steady and kind. "Then we won't." He looked at her, gratitude and longing warring in his expression. "Thank you," he whispered. On the drive back, the silence wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful. Zoe stared out the window, her reflection overlapping with his in the glass. She had crossed a line today, not physically, emotionally, and she knew there was no going back. That night, a sudden storm rolled in, thunder echoing through the estate, rain pounding against windows. Zoe sat awake in her room, restless. A knock came at her door. Her heart jumped. She opened it to find Chan-woo standing there, hair damp, expression conflicted. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I shouldn't be here." She searched his face. "Then why are you?" "Because I don't trust myself to be alone tonight." The honesty undid her. She stepped aside. "Come in." They sat on opposite ends of the sofa, tension thick. "I don't want to rush this," he said. "But I don't want to pretend I don't feel it either." She nodded. "Neither do I." Silence stretched. Then he looked at her, eyes raw. "May I?" She didn't ask what he meant. She nodded. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly, tentatively. A kiss filled with restraint, respect, and something terrifyingly real. When they pulled back, both were breathing unevenly. "That changes things," Zoe whispered. "Yes," he agreed. "It does." And for the first time since this arrangement began, neither of them felt trapped. They felt chosen. Love, Zoe was learning, did not arrive gently. It crept in quietly, settled into the corners of her life, and then demanded space. Space she had never planned to give. The morning after the kiss felt different. Not awkward, not dramatic, just heavier. Zoe woke early, the rain from the night before still clinging to the air. She lay staring at the ceiling, Chan-woo's presence lingering in her thoughts like a question she hadn't yet answered. We crossed a line, and yet she didn't regret it. Downstairs, Chan-woo sat alone in his study, hands clasped, jaw tight. The kiss replayed relentlessly, not as temptation, but as consequence. He had let himself feel something real. That was dangerous. For the first time in years, his control had slipped. Not in a boardroom, not in a negotiation, but in a quiet room with a woman who looked at him like he was human, not strategic value. And the world was not kind to men like that. Breakfast was polite, too polite. They sat across from each other, exchanging careful smiles, avoiding prolonged eye contact. The air between them hummed with unspoken awareness. "You're quiet," Zoe said finally. "So are you." She nodded. "I'm thinking. That makes two of us." Their eyes met briefly, then drifted away again. They weren't pulling back. They were bracing. The pressure arrived before noon. A call from Chan-woo's father summoned him to a private meeting. Zoe wasn't invited, but she knew better than to think that meant she wasn't the topic. Chan-woo returned an hour later, his expression unreadable. "They want us to accelerate," he said quietly as they walked through the garden. "Accelerate what?" she asked, though she already suspected. "Public commitment, engagement announcement, timelines." Her chest tightened. "That's fast." "That's strategic," he corrected, then sighed. "They're worried about rumors." She stopped walking. "What rumors?" He hesitated. "Say it." He turned to face her. "That this is transactional. That there's no real connection." Zoe laughed once, sharp and incredulous. "So their solution is to force a fairy tale?" "Yes." She crossed her arms. "And what do you think?" His answer came too slowly. "I think they're afraid." "And you?" "I think..." He paused, searching her face. "I don't want us to become something we're not ready to be." Relief washed through her, quickly followed by fear. "Neither do I," she said softly. They stood there, tension coiling between them. Neither noticed the eyes watching from the terrace above. That evening, Zoe attended a virtual conference with her U.S. team. She sat in the library, headset on, voice calm and authoritative. Chan-woo passed by once, then twice, pausing in the doorway longer than necessary. She was brilliant, commanding, effortless. And suddenly, a seed he hadn't expected took root. Insecurity. Where do I fit in her life? The thought whispered. She didn't need him. She chose him. and somehow that was scarier. The next day brought a public complication neither of them anticipated. An unannounced luncheon hosted by international investors, media present. Zoe arrived moments after Chan-woo, stepping into the venue with her usual composure. Then she saw her, a tall, elegant woman standing beside Chan-woo, her hand resting familiarly on his arm as they laughed. Yura, the same woman from the gallery. Zoe's steps faltered just slightly. You have no claim, she told herself. No right to feel this. But the tightness in her chest refused to listen. Chan-woo noticed Zoe instantly, his smile fading as he gently removed Yura's hand. Zoe, he said, relief evident in his voice. You're here. Yura turned, her smile calculating. We meet again. Zoe met her gaze coolly. Seems so. The lunch unfolded awkwardly. Zoe remained professional, engaged, articulate, but her laughter didn't reach her eyes. Chan-woo felt the shift acutely. He leaned toward her once. This isn't what it looks like. She didn't look at him. Then what is it? An interruption. She finally met his gaze, hurt flickering before she masked it. You don't owe me explanations. That was worse. The tension followed them back to the estate like a storm cloud. They avoided each other until nightfall, when it finally broke. Zoe found Chan-woo in the study, staring at the city lights. You should have told me, she said quietly. He turned. Told you what? That she still circles you like an option. His jaw tightened. I didn't invite her. But you didn't shut it down either. That's not fair. Neither is pretending this doesn't affect me, she snapped, then froze. I didn't mean. No, he said softly. Say it. She exhaled shakily. I don't like feeling like I'm sharing space with ghosts. He stepped closer. There are no ghosts. There are histories, she countered. And I don't compete with those. Something in her voice, fear wrapped in pride, undid him. I choose you, he said firmly. The words hung between them, fragile and real. Her eyes searched his. Even when this gets complicated? Especially then. Silence stretched. Then she whispered, Then don't leave me guessing. He nodded. I won't. Later that night, Zoe sat alone, replaying everything. She was falling, not recklessly, but deeply. And the deeper she fell, the more she realized what was at stake. Love didn't just ask for courage. It demanded risk. In his room, Chan-woo stared at his phone, unread messages piling up. Family, advisors, expectations. For the first time, he didn't answer. Because for the first time, the decision wasn't about legacy. It was about her. And that frightened him more than losing everything else. The silence didn't arrive all at once. Crept in slowly, measured, deliberate, and devastating. Zoe felt it the moment she woke the next morning. Not in something Chan-woo did wrong, but in what he didn't do at all. No quiet knock at breakfast. No passing glance in the hallway. No soft question asking how she was holding up. Distance. Intentional. And it hurt more than any argument could have. She told herself it was fine. That she was being dramatic. That this was what she had wanted: clarity, boundaries, space. But the ache in her chest disagreed. Chan-woo stayed buried in work. Meetings stretched longer than necessary. Calls replaced conversations. Strategy replaced emotion. It was easier that way. Every time he thought about Zoe, about the way her voice softened when she trusted him, about the look in her eyes when she felt unwanted, guilt gnawed at him. Because the truth was this: his family had made a move, and he hadn't stopped it fast enough. Zoe found out by accident. A message flashed across her tablet during a late-night review session. A news alert she hadn't subscribed to, but couldn't escape. Han Group considers formal engagement announcement to secure global merger. Her breath caught. She read the article once, then twice, then again. There it was, unnamed sources, strategic analysis, talk of aligning personal milestones with corporate objectives. Engagement. Announced. Planned. Without her. Her hands trembled slightly as she set the tablet down. So this is how it happens, she thought. Decisions made for me. Again. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She grew cold. The confrontation happened that night. Zoe stood in the doorway of Chan-woo's study, the glow of his desk lamp casting sharp shadows across his face. "You should tell me when my life becomes a press strategy," she said quietly. He looked up, startled. "Zoe, don't," she cut in. "Just tell me if it's true." His silence was answer enough. "Yes," he admitted. "They're pushing it." "And you?" she asked. He stood. "I didn't agree. But you didn't refuse." The words landed like a slap. "I needed time," he said. "So did I," she replied. "But no one asked me." Her voice didn't shake. "That was worse. You said you wouldn't make me guess," she continued. "Yet here I am, finding out through headlines. I was trying to protect us," he said desperately. "By removing my choice?" He flinched. "I thought if I could stabilize things." "Love isn't stabilized by control," she said. "It's destroyed by it." The silence that followed was heavy, final. "I think we need space," Zoe said softly. His chest tightened. "Zoe, I don't mean forever," she added. "I mean now, before we become something that isn't real." He nodded slowly, pain etched into his features. "If that's what you need." "It is." She turned and walked away before he could say anything else. The days that followed were the hardest Zoe had faced in years. She threw herself into work, calls with her team, late-night strategy sessions, relentless focus. It didn't help, because love, once acknowledged, didn't disappear when ignored. She missed him in the quiet moments, in the way the house felt too large without their shared silence. She questioned herself endlessly. Was I foolish? Too sensitive? Too proud? But deep down, she knew the truth. She hadn't asked for perfection. She had asked for partnership. Chan-woo unraveled quietly. He canceled social appearances, ignored his family's pressure, let deadlines blur. The study, the place he once controlled everything, felt like a cage. He replayed her words over and over. Love isn't stabilized by control. For the first time, he understood how much fear had ruled him. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of choosing wrong. And in trying to protect love, he had pushed it away. The breaking point came during a family dinner. His father's voice was calm, measured. "Zoe will come around. She's smart. She understands the value of this union." Chan-woo stood abruptly. "No," he said. The room stilled. "She understands her worth," he continued. "And I failed to honor it." His mother frowned. "Chan-woo, I won't announce anything without her consent," he said firmly. "And if that jeopardizes the merger, then so be it." His father stared at him. "You're willing to risk everything?" "Yes," Chan-woo said. "Because without choice, there is no partnership. And without respect, there is no love." The word hung in the air. Love. He didn't flinch. That night, Zoe received a message she didn't expect. "Chan-woo, I'm sorry. Truly. I chose wrong when I stayed silent. I'm choosing differently now." She stared at the screen, heart racing. A second message followed. "I won't ask you to come back. But I needed you to know. I choose you, even if it costs me everything." Her throat tightened. Tears finally came, not from pain but from relief. She didn't reply. Not yet. Some choices needed to be made in person. As dawn broke over Seoul, both of them stood at opposite ends of the estate. Awake, uncertain, but changed. Love had stripped them of comfort. Now it demanded truth, and neither of them could turn away from it anymore. Zoe did not leave the estate. That alone said everything. She stayed, not because she was trapped, not because she was waiting to be persuaded, but because running would have been the easy option. And Zoe Carter had never built her life on ease. Instead, she reclaimed her space. The next morning, she moved her work sessions to the East Wing Lounge, a bright, open area overlooking the gardens. Calls were taken confidently, laughter returned to her voice, and her presence in the estate shifted. No longer tentative, no longer emotional. Deliberate. Chan-woo noticed immediately. He didn't interrupt her, didn't hover, didn't chase. That was the difference. He understood now that love did not require desperation, it required clarity. 3 days passed before they spoke alone. Not because of avoidance, but because both of them needed to arrive at the conversation hole. Chan-woo asked her to meet him in the indoor conservatory just before sunset. The space was quiet, filled with greenery and filtered light, neutral ground. When Zoe arrived, she didn't brace herself. She simply walked in. Chan-woo stood as she approached, posture calm, composed, not defensive. "Thank you for coming," he said. She nodded. "I wanted to." They sat across from each other, not too close, not distant, balanced. "I won't explain what you already know," Chan-woo began. "And I won't justify silence. I mishandled that." Zoe appreciated that immediately. No excuses, just accountability. "I don't need apologies repeated," she said. "I need alignment." He nodded. "Then let me be clear." He met her eyes steadily. "I am not losing control of my life," he continued, "but I am no longer making decisions alone." Something softened in her chest. "My family understands that any public step involving you requires your consent," he added. "Not as courtesy, as policy." She studied his face. "You enforced that?" "Yes. No drama, no sacrifice, just authority." "That matters," she said quietly. "It should," he replied. Zoe leaned back slightly. "Then let me be clear too." He listened fully. "I don't want to be protected from decisions. I want to be part of them," she said. "I don't want romance used as strategy, and I don't want strategy disguised as romance." "I agree. And I won't compete with past connections," she added. "Not because I'm insecure, but because I don't negotiate my worth." He didn't flinch. "There is nothing to compete with," he said. "But your boundary stands." They held each other's gaze. This wasn't flirting. This was trust being built deliberately. Something shifted after that conversation. Not explosively, securely. They began moving together again. Not out of obligation, but understanding. At a business dinner 2 nights later, Zoe sat beside Chan-woo, not as an accessory, but as a voice. When an executive deferred to Chan-woo out of habit, he redirected smoothly. "You should ask Zoe," he said. She led that analysis. The room adjusted instantly. Zoe met his gaze briefly. Acknowledgement passed between them. Later, when they were alone in the car, she smiled. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," he replied, "because it was accurate." She laughed softly. "That's even better." Their closeness returned, but different now. More grounded, less fragile. One evening, they shared takeout on the terrace instead of attending a formal dinner. Zoe sat cross-legged on the floor cushion, shoes kicked aside, hair loose. "This feels rebellious," she said, opening a container. Chan-woo smiled. "Against what?" "Expectations." He considered that. "Then we should do it more often." They talked easily about childhood memories, failures that shaped them, ambitions that had nothing to do with money. Zoe told him about the first time she realized she was respected for her mind, not her name. Chan-woo told her about the loneliness of always being chosen for what he represented. Neither tried to fix the other. They simply listened. At some point, their hands brushed. This time, neither pulled away. He took her hand slowly, deliberately, giving her time. She intertwined her fingers with his. No rush, no heat, just certainty. The next public appearance felt different too. At a charity foundation event, they moved as a unit, not stiff, not performative. When a reporter asked, "Is love part of this partnership?" Zoe smiled before Chan-woo could answer. "I think respect always comes first," she said. Chan-woo added, "And when respect is mutual, affection follows naturally." Their answers weren't rehearsed. They were true. That night, standing in the quiet of the estate hallway, Zoe stopped him. "Chan-woo." "Yes. We're not pretending anymore, are we?" He shook his head. "No. And we're not rushing." "No." She smiled. "Good." He returned it. "Very good." They leaned in, not urgently, not desperately. Their kiss was unhurried, warm, confident. A kiss between two people who knew where they stood. When they parted, Zoe rested her forehead briefly against his. "This," she said, "feels right." "It is," he replied, "because it's chosen." For the first time since this merger was proposed, the future didn't feel imposed. It felt designed together. If anyone expected Zoe Carter to disappear into Chan-woo Han's shadow, they miscalculated badly. The first sign came during the Asia Global Economic Summit. The hall was massive. Rows of dignitaries, investors, political figures, and corporate leaders seated beneath towering lights. The Han Group logo stood prominently behind the podium, a symbol of generational dominance. Chan-woo arrived calm, controlled, every inch the CEO the world recognized. But it was Zoe who shifted the atmosphere. She walked in beside him, not half a step behind, not clinging to his arm, just present. Confident, composed, unapologetically herself. Heads turned. Whispers followed. "That's her? She's younger than I expected. She doesn't look intimidated at all." Zoe ignored it. She had learned long ago that attention was only dangerous when you feared it. On stage, Chan-woo delivered his opening remarks with precision. When he stepped back and gestured toward Zoe, a ripple of surprise moved through the room. "My partner will now speak on the Carter Group's strategic vision," he said evenly. No qualifiers, no hesitation. Zoe took the podium. She spoke clearly, confidently, and without excess. Her words were sharp but inclusive, visionary without being abstract. She didn't sell fantasy. She sold direction. By the time she finished, the applause was genuine. Chan-woo watched from his seat, something warm settling firmly in his chest. Not pride, admiration. The reaction afterward was immediate. Executives approached Zoe directly. Not through Chan-woo, not with patronizing smiles, but with interest and respect. Chan-woo stayed close but never intervened unless she asked. When someone tried to subtly test boundaries, addressing him instead of her, he redirected effortlessly. "You'll want Zoe's approval on that." Simple. Final. Zoe noticed, and she didn't take it lightly. That evening, they attended a private reception on the rooftop of a luxury hotel overlooking the city. Music played softly. Champagne flowed. Zoe stood at the railing, the city glowing beneath her. "You were incredible today," Chan-woo said quietly, joining her. She smiled. "You're not just saying that because you're required to." "No," he replied. "I'm saying it because I was impressed." She turned to him. "That means more than praise." Their eyes met. The attraction between them had changed, less sharp, more steady. "Do you ever get tired of being impressive?" she asked. He considered it. "I get tired of being expected to be." She laughed softly. "Fair." Not everyone was pleased. Zoe noticed the looks, subtle, lingering. Other women, impeccably dressed, carefully polite. Some curious, some openly envious. One in particular approached later, elegant, poised, voice smooth. "You're adapting well," the woman said. "Not everyone does." Zoe met her gaze evenly. "I don't adapt. I participate." The woman smiled thinly. "Of course." From across the room, Chan-woo observed the exchange. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. Zoe handled herself perfectly. Later, as they left, he murmured, "You intimidate people." She laughed. "Good." Their private moments became lighter too. One afternoon, Zoe found Chan-woo in the gym, sleeves rolled up, focused. She leaned against the doorway. "You know," she said, "your reputation suggests you're unapproachable." He paused mid-rep. And you're surprisingly easy to tease." He straightened, eyebrow raised. "Are you teasing me now?" "Testing the theory." He stepped closer. "Careful." She smiled. "I am." The space between them hummed. Not tense, not desperate, playful. Later that night, they shared dessert in the kitchen, shoes kicked off, standing too close. "This doesn't feel like an arrangement anymore," Zoe said. Chan-woo nodded. It hasn't for a while. She studied him. Are you comfortable with that? Yes, he said without hesitation. Because I'm not losing myself in it. She smiled. Neither am I. Public opinion shifted quickly. Headlines no longer questioned chemistry. They analyzed influence. Han-Carter alliance redefines power partnership. A new model of modern corporate romance? Zoe read one article and shook her head. They always need labels. Chanwoo glanced at the screen. Let them. What would you call this? She asked. He thought for a moment. Alignment, he said. She nodded. I like that. One quiet evening, they sat together in the conservatory again. The same place where boundaries had been drawn. Now they sat closer. Zoe rested her head lightly against his shoulder. This feels stable, she said. He wrapped an arm around her without thinking. Because it is. And you're not afraid? I am, he admitted. But not of us. She looked up at him. Then what? Of how much I enjoy this. She smiled. Good. Love, Zoe realized, didn't always arrive as chaos. Sometimes it arrived as clarity. And clarity was powerful. The invitation arrived sealed in elegance and intention. Zoe read it once, then again her expression unreadable. Your parents? Chanwoo asked, noticing the shift. Yes, she replied. And more than that. He waited. They're hosting a private reception in New York, she continued. Key Carter Group stakeholders. Old money families. Influencers in spaces you don't see often. He nodded slowly. They want to see me. They want to assess you, Zoe corrected gently. Not as a CEO. As alignment. Chanwoo smiled faintly. Fair. She studied him. You're not offended? Why would I be? He asked calmly. You walked into my world and held your ground. I can do the same. Something warm settled in her chest. New York greeted them with sharp air and restless energy. The Carter family estate sat quietly beyond the city's chaos. Elegant, understated, powerful in a way that didn't need spectacle. Zoe grew more reserved as they approached. Chanwoo noticed. Talk to me, he said softly as the car slowed. My family doesn't test people loudly, she said. They observe. He nodded. Then I'll give them something honest to observe. She smiled. That's the right answer. Inside, the atmosphere was composed, watchful. Zoe's parents welcomed them warmly, but their eyes missed nothing. Introductions followed. Conversations overlapped. Eyes lingered. Chanwoo felt it, the unspoken question beneath every exchange. Does he respect her, or does he overshadow her? He answered without words. When discussions turned to business, he deferred naturally to Zoe where appropriate. When cultural differences surfaced, he didn't dominate. He listened, asked, adapted. At one point, an older Carter associate smiled politely. In our experience, powerful men often struggle with equally powerful women. Chanwoo didn't hesitate. I don't struggle with strength, he said evenly. I struggle with dishonesty. Zoe has neither problem. The room shifted. Zoe met his gaze, surprised, and deeply moved. Later, Zoe's mother pulled her aside. He's not performative, she said quietly. That's rare. Zoe smiled. He doesn't need to be. Across the room, Zoe's father spoke privately with Chanwoo. You understand this isn't just about affection, he said. Chanwoo nodded. Yes, it's about alignment without erasure. Her father studied him. Good answer. Chanwoo met his gaze steadily. It's also the truth. That night, alone in the guest suite, Zoe leaned against the window, watching the city lights. You didn't try to impress them, she said. I wasn't there to, Chanwoo replied. I was there to show them how I stand beside you. She turned to him slowly. That matters more than you realize. He stepped closer. I think I do. Their kiss that night was deeper, not urgent, not restrained, assured. The final test came the next morning. Private breakfast. Just family. Zoe's father spoke calmly. If this becomes difficult, public pressure, cultural tension, what happens? Chanwoo answered without hesitation. We adjust, he said. Not by controlling each other, but by deciding together. Silence followed. Then Zoe's father nodded once. That's leadership. Zoe's mother smiled. And partnership. On the flight back to Seoul, Zoe rested her head on Chanwoo's shoulder. My world didn't scare you, she murmured. No, he replied. It clarified things. She smiled. Me too. Love, they both understood now, wasn't about proving worth. It was about recognizing it across cultures, across expectations, across power, and choosing it anyway. There was a particular kind of calm that followed their return to Seoul. Not the stillness of avoidance, not the tension of uncertainty, but the peace that came when questions had finally been answered. Zoe noticed it first in the way she slept. Deeply uninterrupted. No racing thoughts. No rehearsed conversations in her head. When she woke, sunlight filtered gently through the curtains, and for once, the day ahead felt expansive instead of demanding. Chanwoo felt it too. Meetings ended on time. Decisions felt lighter. His thoughts no longer circled endlessly around contingencies. Love, he was learning, didn't complicate life when it was healthy. Clarified it. They began sharing mornings. Not formally. Not announced. Just naturally. Sometimes Zoe would find Chanwoo already awake, reading quietly with a cup of tea. Other mornings, he would pause outside her door, knock once and wait. No assumption. Always choice. They cooked breakfast together once. An unplanned experiment that ended in laughter and mild disaster. You're too precise, Zoe said, watching him measure ingredients. And you're reckless, he replied, amused. It's called intuition. It's called chaos. They laughed, shoulders brushing, comfort effortless. The estate staff noticed. Not through affection, there were no grand displays, but through ease, through rhythm. They walked together in the evenings, sat beside each other during meetings, shared looks that didn't need translation. Nothing felt rushed, and nothing felt forced. One afternoon, they found themselves in the conservatory again. The same place where uncertainty once lived. Now, Zoe sat cross-legged on the sofa, reviewing notes, while Chanwoo stood nearby, phone in hand. There's an opportunity, he said casually. A long-term project between our companies. Expanded governance. She glanced up. You're asking my opinion? I'm asking my partner, he corrected. She smiled softly. Then yes, with conditions. He raised an eyebrow. Of course. Equal oversight, she continued. Clear boundaries. No personal milestones tied to corporate deadlines. He nodded without hesitation. Agreed. She closed her notebook. You're good at this. At what? Listening. He smiled. I had a good teacher. The public moment came unexpectedly. A press briefing after a quarterly report, routine, controlled. A reporter asked, There's been speculation about the personal nature of this alliance. How would you define your relationship? The room stilled. Zoe looked at Chanwoo, not for permission, but for alignment. He met her gaze, then spoke calmly. We are committed, he said, to our work, to our values, and to each other. No labels, no promises shaped for headlines, just truth. Zoe added, and we're doing it deliberately. The response was immediate, positive, respectful, grounded. No frenzy, no scandal. That evening, they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, lights stretching endlessly below. This is the first time I've seen commitment without pressure, Zoe said quietly. It's the only kind worth having, Chanwoo replied. She turned to him. Where do you see this going? He considered it, not strategically but honestly. Forward, he said. With room to grow. She smiled. I like that answer. Later, as they sat together in quiet companionship, Zoe rested her head against his shoulder. I never thought love would feel like this, she admitted. Like what? Like stability, she said. Like being seen without being consumed. He wrapped an arm around her gently. That's exactly what I want too. For the first time, neither of them feared the future. because it wasn't demanding anything from them. It was waiting. The rain started without warning. Soft at first, then steady, tapping against the tall glass windows of Chan-woo's private penthouse overlooking the Han River. Seoul at night glowed beneath the clouds, reflections trembling across the water like secrets being kept. Zoe stood barefoot near the window wearing one of his shirts. Not because she had planned to, but because at some point during the evening it had simply felt right. Chan-woo watched her from across the room, his jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly undone in a way the public never saw. This wasn't the polished billionaire CEO the world admired. This was the man who looked at her as if she was the one thing that finally made sense. "You're thinking again," he said quietly. She turned, smiling. "You always notice. I always notice you." The words landed softly, but they stayed. She walked toward him slowly, the city light tracing her skin, her confidence unguarded now. There was no tension between them anymore. No uncertainty, just awareness. "I used to think love would feel distracting," she admitted, "like something that pulled you off course." "And now?" he asked. She stopped in front of him, close enough to feel his warmth. "Now it feels like alignment." Chan-woo lifted his hand, not touching her yet, just hovering, asking without words. When she nodded, he brushed his thumb gently along her jaw. "I didn't fall for you all at once," he said. "It happened quietly, in the way you challenge me without trying, in the way you walk into rooms already knowing who you are." Her breath hitched slightly. "And I didn't fall for you because you're powerful," she replied. "I fell because you never tried to use it on me." That was when he kissed her. Not rushed, not hesitant. A kiss that carried intention. His hands settled at her waist, firm but reverent, pulling her closer as if the world outside the glass no longer mattered. Zoe melted into him, not because she was giving in, but because she felt safe enough to let go. The kiss deepened. Laughter slipped between them when she brushed his cheek and whispered, "You know, you were nothing like the rumors." He smiled against her lips. "Neither were you." They moved together naturally, slow steps, shared breath until they reached the sofa. He sat, and she followed, curling into his lap without thinking. This wasn't passion driven by urgency. It was desire built on knowing. "You don't ask me to be less," she murmured, fingers tracing the collar of his shirt. "And you don't ask me to be more than I am," he replied. He rested his forehead against hers. "I don't want a future that demands sacrifice from us," he said. "I want one that grows because we're in it." Zoe smiled, eyes soft. "Then choose me." He didn't answer with words. He kissed her again. Slower this time, deeper. One hand steady at her back, the other threading gently through her hair as the rain fell harder outside. In that moment there was no merger, no expectation, no performance. Only two people who had found something rare and knew how to keep it. Later, wrapped in quiet, Zoe rested against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "This," she said softly, "is the kind of love people don't believe exists." Chan-woo kissed the top of her head. "Let them doubt," he replied. "We know better." And in the city that never stopped watching, they remained untouched, because what they had was not fragile. It was chosen. Morning arrived gently. Light slipped through the curtains, soft and unhurried. The rain was gone. The city breathed quietly beyond the windows. Zoe woke first. She didn't open her eyes. She didn't need to. Chan-woo was there, the steady rhythm of his breath, the warmth of his arm around her waist. Unmoving, certain. When she shifted, he pulled her closer, instinctively. "Good morning," she whispered. His eyes opened slowly, calm, present. "It feels like it," he said. She smiled. For once, there was nothing to plan, nothing to prepare for, just the comfort of being exactly where she wanted to be. "You don't have to decide today," Chan-woo said quietly. "And tomorrow?" she asked. "We'll decide together." The words settled gently between them. Outside, the city moved on. Meetings, ambition, noise. But inside that quiet room, two strong lives rested, not in uncertainty, not in compromise, but in choice. Together, some love stories begin with fireworks. Theirs began with restraint. They were not drawn together by need, nor forced apart by fear. They did not lose themselves to prove devotion, and they did not demand sacrifice to feel secure. Instead, they built something rare, a love where power did not dominate, a partnership where ambition did not compete, a bond where two strong lives met without erasing each other. Chanwoo remained a man of influence. Zoe remained a woman of purpose. And together, they became something greater than a merger. They became a choice, not rushed, not forced, not borrowed from expectation, but chosen again and again, quietly, confidently, and for the long run. Some love stories aren't dramatic, just deliberate, chosen, and built to last. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, leave us a comment. Also like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and click on the notification bell to get notified whenever a new story is made.